Okay, today we're going to try to show you a little bit about about how to do a fiberglass and carbon sleeve, a takedown. It's a really popular upgrade for your bows. The customers really like it. It's, in my opinion, the best takedown system out there for a longbow. You can't tell it to look at it or to shoot it. This is my personal bow. It's a two-piece bow, looks the same, feels the same. The carbon and fiberglass doesn't weigh much, insignificant difference between it and the wood that it displaces. They're not as difficult to do as one might think. You don't need a lot of the special equipment that I might use in this video to do it. It can be done completely by hand. I do a whole lot of takedowns, so I've got some extra special equipment to do it. They're very, very strong. I've used them in bows up to 90 pounds. I've got a 99 pounder out there that has been shortened. It was originally one of my personal bows in low 80s, and the limbs were shortened up. It's 99 pounds. It's still doing quite well. I could foresee doing something a little heavier than that, but 99+% of the bows you're going to do probably are going to be below 70 pounds or below 50 or below 60 or even down below 50 pounds, so you should have no issues with it. When I build a sleeve, I try to overbuild everything as much as possible. It gives me more peace of mind, although I feel I don't necessarily need to build them that strong. But it should give you, the life of the bow is worth the use out of it without any problems. I feel the takedown itself is probably stronger than the bow itself. But this, like I say, this particular bow is a takedown, two-piece. No tools, they're easy to use, come apart nicely, go together nicely. You can have them tighter or a little bit looser, won't hurt anything. The snugness and the no play in there is really more of an aesthetic thing for people that are buying the bow. They think that's nice and tight and whatnot, but in reality when it's strung you wouldn't know the difference. But for sales sake, we like to have them nice and snug. And I'm going to try to show you the way that I do it. Now there's lots of ways of skinning a cat, and ultimately as long as the cat's skinned, I guess you got the job done. So you may find many ways that work out better for you than the way I'm going to show you now. But again, this is how I do it, and I find this to work out the best for me and my bows. That's a two-piece already finished, and the way I start off with a two-piece, I take my riser and I get the block the way I want it, and I cut it down, not quite down the middle. I'll cut it to where there's about a ½ inch of riser material on one side of the glass that I put in the middle as an I-beam, and then 3/4 inch on the other side, and I put a 1/4 inch worth of woven glass in the middle of my risers like an I-beam style. You can see in this bow how I've got a ½ inch of material on one side, or in this riser, a ½ inch of material on one side, 3/4 inch on the other side. The 3/4 inch is the side I'm going to cut my shelf into. That way, when it's done, I have cut very little into the glass itself where I won't weaken that support in there. And usually, a side plate material will cover any glass that does show. But you're not weakening up the riser any by cutting into the glass deeply. If that glass was in the middle, then you'd have to cut halfway through the glass to get a center cut riser. All my bows are center cut, and again, I don't have any problems. The bow that I just showed you was 81 pounds, and personally I don't build any longbows for myself that are under 80 pounds, and everything I do build is a takedown. That's for my personal bows. So you can see in that riser where my 1/4 inch of glass runs belly to back. The riser would be held like this, and that adds extra strength. Doesn't allow the riser to flex any in the wood area, and again, to me that's the strongest way of doing it. Some guys may want to use phenolic. Phenolic does flex. In that particular position, it would probably be just fine. But again, I believe in overbuilding, and this is, I've never had one of my risers fail for those particular reasons. In the beginning, I made a couple of mistakes here and there, you know, before I really knew what I was doing, because I had to learn a lot of this on my own. I've had some help from others. They were very gracious to help me, and one of the reasons why I feel that doing this video is probably a good thing for the sport. We can put people in a good takedown bow, and they don't have to worry about having any problems with it. So that's a riser before it's cut out. You finish your riser out just like you would to glue up a bow, and after it gets to that stage, you glue it up just as though it was a one-piece bow. Again, you might find it easier to not cut your bows out. My bows are nearly ready to cut string grooves in them when I get it ready to cut it apart in order to make a takedown. And in 150, I don't know exactly how many I've done, but you know, certainly 130 or 40 plus bows. If I go through all the steps that I normally do, if I don't forget any steps, they've all gone back together without requiring any additional limb straightening, more than what you would normally do when you were completing your one-piece bows. And for that reason, I just continue on the way I've been doing it. I suppose I would have more room for error if I left my limbs uncut and then cut them afterwards. But again, it works for me, and that's the way I do it. If you choose to do it that way, great. It's whatever works for you. So this bow has been glued together with one of those risers. You can see the 1/4 inch fiberglass in the middle, and the shelf is going to be cut on this side when I do cut the shelf in, so that I won't be cutting through my FRP or my reinforced fiberglass I-beam in there. Okay, so once I've got the bow to that stage, whether you do anything with the limbs previous or not a big deal, but I like to shape the grip just the way the customer wants the grip, and there's a good reason for that. If I don't shape the grip first and I try to cut in the sleeve, because I don't have a CNC or anything like that, and they're all hand cut, I may not make the grip small enough, and then ultimately when I grind the fiberglass back down to the grip shape that I want, if I made my tenon and my socket too big, I won't be able to make the grip and the swell down to the size I want it to be. So I start off by grinding the grip just as though I was going to finish it complete for a customer as a one-piece. Now this is rough sanded. There's no need in going any farther than that, but for the most part this grip is ready for the customer, shy of becoming a two-piece. So after I've got the grip shaped up the way I want it to be, if you can see this here, I've drawn the lines on here that I'm going to follow. This is my bottom line, my baseline, and that's where the bottom edge of the socket's going to be, of the lower limb is going to be. I drew a little line coming up the back. That's approximately where the heel of the tenon. The tenon is the lower part and the socket is the top part. But that's the back line of the tenon approximately. I made a little line here to show you that that's about 3/4 of an inch, and that's essentially the height of the back end of my tenon. On the top I draw a line across the front about the same way. That's where the front end of my tenon is going to stop. It's essentially along the glass line. I try not to cut through that glass in the riser. If I can help it a little bit, it's not a big deal. But by leaving that glass in there, then everything overlaps the glass. Again, I've never had a failure, but I feel that that sleeve helps hold the glass down into place when you're shooting it. Less likely for them to peel loose. Thousands and thousands of recurves have the glass cut through on the back side of the riser. I don't feel that it would be an issue. Again, this is how I do mine, and it works for me. I feel it's at least plenty strong, if not overly built. So I've got it marked out, my tenon on the back side and on the belly side. This particular line is close but not quite 45 degrees. Do I have an exact angle on it, I don't. 45 degrees will bring that line way up here, closer to the top part of, or closer to the shelf. And I like to have enough of this upper part in the socket so that it can be held down basically by the fiberglass. Again, I haven't had a problem with them rolling out, but I like to have a little bit of meat up here in order to wrap my socket around. So my line, just shy of 45 degrees, meaning more flat towards the bottom. And on this one, if you've got a longer riser, you could do 45 degrees. I don't think it's necessary to have 45 or more than 45. And but this is a good one, works for my particular bow design. So now that I've got my tenon marked out, and this is the upper section, that's where I'm going to stop with my wrap, the line around the top up here near the shelf. If I go above that, then it's going to be visible when the bow is completed. So that's as high as I can go and still hide the fiberglass. It's not necessary to go any higher. And so I've got all that marked in. I got two little marks here on the back side, and I use those marks. That's where I'm going to drill this riser for alignment pins to ease the reassembly, to help line things back up when it's reassembled. So now that I've got that all marked out and ready to start making my socket, I'm ready to drill it. Now that bow, again, that bow's ready to go as far as cutting and grinding the socket in. This is a completed takedown sleeve. You can see where the lower shoulder is on the lower end and where the upper shoulder is. It comes out up underneath the sight window. And it's wrapped in and it's formed the way I want it to be, the way the customer had requested his grip to be, as close to what he could describe it to me. Some people ask me if you need to use carbon. My answer is you probably don't. But the carbon is kind of a stopgap. It's a different color. You may be able to see that right there where I sanded a little bit into the carbon. I've got glass and stuff below the carbon, and the carbon is relatively thick there also. So having gone that far, I don't feel that I've gone too far, and I know that I can stop right there and not have to worry about it being too thin. I don't have carbon showing anywhere else in here, so I know I've got a socket that's thick enough to do the job. In fact, I don't take my bows down until they're completed at this stage. I'll leave the socket together, and it'll be good to go until it's time, the bow's finished and tillered and everything else, the limbs are straight and it's good to go. So this bow's nearly completed. From there, we're going to get set up at the drill press.